It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That means that's Alan Saunders. Alan, how we doing?
Good, man. Good. Very good. I feel like the temperature, which was not warm, but it was like 28.
Yep.
It was like the fog is lifted. Like the entire world was. I was at the grocery store today. It's like half the known universe was there. Everyone was like, "We can leave the house without it hurting again."
Yeah, for anybody that has heard me talk about what I do for my full-time job in the past, it's directly related to grocery stores. So yes, I'm very well aware of how busy that the grocery stores were today. But yeah, I saw it was in the 20s. I was like, do I got to kick on the air conditioning? What do we got to do here to readjust? No,
I did not see any prime rib on sale for 99 cents a pound, but I was looking. I was keeping my eyes open.
Okay. Well, there you go. What'd you walk out with then? Some Cheez-Its, Mountain Dew.
You know, it's funny. Somebody in the comments was like, hilarious that Alan was like Cheez-Its, pretzels, and Mountain Dew. And I don't even drink Mountain Dew. I don't know why.
Wasn't it Tyler?
My co-host. Yeah. I didn't see who it was. But, yeah. I don't even drink Mountain Dew. I don't know. I just brought it up. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of the comments, we appreciate all the questions that we get. We're going to dive into quite a few of them on today's episode because, Alan, not a ton of news. The one thing to talk about, I guess, kind of pertains to TJ Watt. And that's where we'll start the conversation. He's a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year, along with Pat Surtain II, Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, Zach Bond. What do we make of this? I feel like we've kind of openly talked about TJ Watt not having a TJ Watt-like season. If you look on the surface level at the numbers that he put up, I mean, in the month of December, like especially after that Philly game, held off the score sheet pretty much entirely the rest of the way through the season and into the playoffs. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like to me a DPOY candidacy year, but at the same time, I think it's a pretty weak year for Defensive Player of the Year to begin with. And a guy like, and I'm not trying to take away from what Zach Bond did and turn his career completely around in one season at Philly. I think the fact that he's on this ballot to me just shows the type of year that it was for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, it seems like Patrick Surtain has sort of become the guy that is the favorite, but like his season wasn't like he had 4 interceptions. He was like I think 3rd in completions per snap and 7th in passer rating when target, like good, but not like overwhelmingly dominant. Trey Hendrickson, the guy who leads the league in sacks, not the world's best run defender, played for a bad defense. That's the other thing about Surtain. The Broncos were like 19th in passing defense as a team. There's nobody out there that I feel like really deserves the vote this year, to be perfectly honest. That's why I picked TJ, just as like a makeup pick from last year. Okay. That's all. That was the entire rationale for my vote was that like I don't like any of these guys, and TJ should have won it last year. He didn't, so I'll pick him. But I think Surtain's going to win it. Not surprised that TJ is a finalist, well deserved. But he's been better. That's clear.
Yeah, I think that it certainly seems like this could be the year to fight. Like it hasn't happened since Stephon Gilmore won it. It's been edge rushers pretty much primarily dominantly. That's who you see take home the Defensive Player of the Year. I agree about Surtain though, and I think that more so than just like the surface level stats, this seems like a year where they're just taking into consideration like the reputation of the player. Like if you ask wide receivers who the best corner they're going against is, Patrick Surtain predominantly going to be the answer there. So it kind of seems like reputation might be taking precedent this year too. And even with your pick of TJ Watt, which I don't think is necessarily a bad one, like you're saying, it's more so about the fact that you feel like he should have won it last year and didn't. So to use words that the kids say, getting his lick back in 2024, winning the award this year. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I started off by saying it. I'll say it again. It just really feels like a down year for Defensive Player of the Year. I mentioned Trey Hendrickson leading the league in sacks of 17.5. 3.5 of those came in the last game of the season against the Steelers. He was tied with 14. We almost had 14 be the league leader in sacks in a 17-game season, which is pretty crazy.
Well, the Steelers were not going to let him get out of there with 14 because he was tied with Myles Garrett. And that's
Yeah.
the Browns had already played. They knew he just needed one. Got it on the first drive, I'm pretty sure. I would have been astonished if Trey Hendrickson left that game without a sack. Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, my prediction, if I'm given one, it's Pat Surtain. If I had a vote, I think it is Pat Surtain. But to be honest with you, I brings the conversation back that we had. I don't even know how long ago, maybe a month and a half, 2 months at this point, where it's like, should Cam Hayward have been on this ballot, even over his teammate and TJ Watt? And if he was, would that have been the direction that you went if you couldn't even have voted for TJ Watt?
No, because I can vote whoever I want, and I I'm not restricted by, the contender. I can
say
I can vote for
if you didn't have
Bishop
TJ Watt
if I
on
want
there.
to.
Yeah.
But I think I think Cam had a really good year. I think Cam's case is for comeback player of the year is really good. I'm not sure he has defensive player of the year numbers. But I mean, he certainly has an argument. That's for sure.
Why would I? Now that you're saying Cam wasn't shown on that graphic as one of the 5 finalists for comeback player of the year.
No.
Yeah.
That's really
it's interesting.
I voted for him for comeback player of the year. I don't think there's, I mean, you can give it to Joe Burrow, I guess. And that's fine. But I think I don't.
Darnold right now is the betting odds favorite, and he goes against like they put out.
He doesn't even qualify. So, I now the PFWA actually splits the award. They have comeback player and most improved player. So I was able to vote for Darnold for that. But yeah, I mean, if you want to pick Burrow, if you want to pick DeMar Hamlin, it's interesting because DeMar Hamlin obviously did come back last year, but he didn't really play. But he did play this year and played really well.
Yes.
So, I mean, I'd be fine with a vote for DeMar Hamlin, Joe Burrow. But, like, other than that, who are you picking over Cam Hayward for that? And if you are,
no,
I kind of feel like you're doing it wrong.
No. And I think J.K. Dobbins deserves to be among the finalists. Not saying that that's the direction that I would go, but the year he had coming off, obviously, he's been, torn both his ACLs. He tore an Achilles. Like, he's gone through a ton of injuries over the last few seasons. So, but yeah, I think Cam Hayward certainly should be in that conversation, if not for Defensive Player of the Year. But let's turn the conversation back to TJ Watt because we got a question from the YouTube community. Our friend Ron Mexico, which you educated me on the first time that he asked a question. I legitimately had no idea about this name until we got a question from this guy, and I had to Google it live on the show, which was definitely a moment that took place on here. He asked if we are likely to see a TJ Watt extension this offseason. Any idea what it would look like to make happen? Also, what do you think about a Minka restructure?
Yeah, I would expect a TJ Watt extension to happen this offseason. Traditionally, the Steelers don't talk extensions until the summer. I don't know if there's a reason for them to break that precedent here, if they really need the money. So TJ's one of these deals where when they sign him to a contract extension, that's going to save them cap space this year. So if they get into March and they're looking at their salary cap space and they're eyeing up T. Higgins or they're eyeing up Chris Godwin and they say, hey, we need the money, maybe they will push that forward on the agenda. They have a lot of cap space. I wrote today at SteelersNow.com, $40 million basically right now. Functionally, when you consider everything that's coming across the offseason, that's like $28 million in new spending. But they can make a lot more. They can save another probably $20 million with a TJ extension. I think 12.5 from cutting Preston Smith with no penalty.
Yeah.
So that's like almost absolutely going to happen, or they'll restructure it to something more reasonable and save a big portion of that. So yeah. Like, they have a ton of cap space. In fact, somebody commented in yesterday's show.
That's what I was going to bring up.
Morning show talking about T. Higgins. Like, oh, they can't sign Russ T. Higgins. They can sign Russ, T. Higgins, DJ Reed, and have $10 million left over. Like, they got a ton of cap space. Cap space is not the issue for the Steelers this offseason. They got a lot of them, like the number of things they need. But cap space is no problem. So, yeah, I mean, if they get to a point where they feel like they need the money. I mean, TJ's cap hit this year is it's what, 30 million or something like that. It's high, and you can make it go very, very far down. When you redo a deal, you can, you sign someone to extension the first year. It's not hard at all to get that all the way down to the bottom. So
30.418 You're pretty
I mean,
on the money.
you could probably get that under. You could almost certainly get that under 10. You might even be able to get it under like 7 if you really want to like tweak the way you make the contract work on a TJ extension. So there's a lot of wiggle room there.
What are you anticipating in terms of, the years and dollars on that, entering his age 31 season? And there's been a lot of talk, obviously, about the way that he played down the stretch. Yeah, obviously, dealing with injury or whatever was going on there, and he's been vocal about him needing to be able to change sides more and rush from over the center at times and move around. But what do you feel like is going to happen this offseason? If you feel like an extension is going to happen, that's one thing, but what do you expect in terms of the years and money on that extension?
I mean, I would expect him to set the record for the highest paid edge rusher. Right now, that's, I think, Nick Bosa, something about like $34 million a year. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it just depends on how you want to structure the contract. TJ's 31. I don't know if he's going to want to set this up as a last deal or set this up where he has one more. That's mostly player driven and cap driven. So you can kind of make the numbers say what you want them to say. Does he want that? Does he not care about having that? Some guys do, some guys don't, And then, but I mean, you're paying him about $30 million a year. Yeah, that should be the way it's going to go. It's what I would expect. I think Garrett will probably push $40 million a year. He's a year younger.
And you got Parsons this summer too.
And Parsons as well. I would pay Garrett and Parsons more than I would pay TJ Watt right now. I know that might be somewhat controversial, but I think we've talked about the way we expect TJ to age, and I'm not sure it's the same as a guy like Garrett, and Parsons obviously a good bit younger than both of them. So, I mean, I think one of those guys gets to $40 million a year this offseason, but I kind of doubt it's TJ. Maybe, if you just want to, like, if he wants another contract, you tack on 2 years, $70 million, and you call it a day. If he doesn't want another contract, then you can really play with it, and you can kind of make it like Ben's contract was like ridiculously unfathomably long with years that everyone knew he was never going to play in. Like, you can go down that road too if you want to.
Well, that's why I asked what your thought was, because I saw somebody throw out there 2 years, 70 million, so 35 per, obviously. And I was thinking, man, is he going to want to go that short term? But then that makes sense. Like, because I can understand from like a cap perspective, it's going to continue to grow. Maybe if he wants to get back in on the market again when it balloons or whatever. But also at the same time, I'm not saying that he's thinking this way, because he's not going to think that his play is going to fall off. But you're taking a little bit of a risk there, right? If he does start to decline over the next couple of seasons, that he doesn't have that big payday coming on the back end of those years.
Yeah, that's the kind of give and take, right? If you want the Ben deal, then you got to take less per year, right? If you want a 5-year deal, then the numbers got to come down. And so it just depends on what he wants, really. I'm not sure. But I'm sure it'll come up at some point. But I don't think it's going to be nearly as contentious as it was last time around, where it was the week before the start of the season. He still didn't have a contract. I don't know if I see it getting there again. I expect this time around it to be a little easier.
I certainly hope so. The part of that with the Minka restructure and why they would want money, we've talked about the receiver position and adding to that room this year in an impactful way. Coastal Bend Fish Ninja. Yeah. Had a question for us here, which I had no clue. I was like so thrown off by this name, and you immediately were like, oh, I'm assuming that they're from Coastal Bend, Texas. And I was like, I had no clue that was an area. So I appreciate
Sure, you got some they got some redfish going on down there. Maybe some flounder. I don't know what else you fish for. I've never been to the Coastal Bend of Texas. I would love to. So Ninja, let me know when you got an empty rod, and I'll be there.
There we go.
I don't know when the Steelers go to Houston next, but maybe we can make that work.
Well, he has a question about the Steelers' ability to attract top wide receivers. Obviously, it's not,
this a lot.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about this. And also Artie Smith, if we think that they were going to replace him, he thinks Smith runs an unfriendly wide receiver system. QB situation is unknown. Offensive line isn't exactly awesome. So are they really an attractive place for top wide receivers?
Yeah, I'm going to start with Arthur Smith. The only question about whether Arthur Smith was going to be the Steelers' offensive coordinator this season was if he was going to get hired away by someone else. I don't think the Steelers ever gave even one moment of thought of moving on from Arthur Smith, nor do I think the Steelers are particularly displeased with the job that Arthur Smith did this past year. I think when you look at the offense and the talent on the offense, they probably overachieved reasonable expectations. I don't think there's any thought at all about moving on from Arthur Smith. As far as the idea that he runs a wide receiver unfriendly offense, I mean, tell that to AJ Brown. I mean, I think this offense has been very wide receiver friendly at times. I'm not sure the Steelers.
I mean, even the other guy there, his Robin, Corey Davis,
right here. Yeah, I don't think the Steelers have all the ingredients for it to be a wide receiver friendly offense right now, right? Between the pass protection, the quarterback play, their inability to establish the run, to set up play action. Like there's a whole lot missing there, right? That prevent the Steelers from being a wide receiver friendly offense. But I don't think there's a lot of wide receivers out there that would complain about like, hey, we're going to run the ball a whole bunch and then throw a bunch of go balls, go run under it. Like that's not a bad selling point for a wide receiver. Now it's not. I mean, depends on the kind of wide receiver. I'm sure.
That's what I was going to say. Yep.
Cooper Kupp isn't as interested in that as T. Higgins is, right? But I think the Steelers definitely have. I think this is something that doesn't like when you're talking about the number of players that are available and the money that's moving around. Like, I don't think it. If you're signing someone to a 5-year deal, I don't think they care that much about what your team looks like right now. Like the way your team looks is going to change a lot over 5 years. Like I just think it's about the organization, the reputation of the organization, your perceived fit with like where the team's going. You know, like that stuff matters a lot more than who the quarterback is or like what the offensive scheme is. If you sign a 5-year deal as a player, you should expect to outlast your coordinator. Like that's just the way the NFL works.
The only wide receiver that signed for more than 3 years last year and got far and away the most money was Calvin Ridley signing with the Tennessee Titans to go play with Will Levis.
Yeah, right.
So
I think,
yeah.
I think
also to your
Steelers are a historically very stable organization, good fan support, always competitive. Mike Tomlin, all of that is like, I think the Steelers are an attractive free agent destination, not the opposite.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the other name that I want, obviously Drake London, who they spent a high pick on. Like, if he only had 6 touchdowns in the 2 years that he was there with Artie Smith in total. But like, look at the quarterback play that they had there, right? Like, I don't think that Drake London was a bad player under Arthur Smith. I just don't think that they had the quarterback and Desmond Ridder to be able to maximize his talents.
Yeah, I don't think
that says much about Artie.
Got much better this year. Like he had 900 yards last year, had 1,200 this year. He did score more touchdowns, but like I don't think they didn't have good quarterback play. They didn't have good offensive line play either. And so I think that's the biggest thing. The Steelers have to find an eventual solution at quarterback, but that's not going to stop a wide receiver from signing somewhere. I really don't think.
Well, we'll talk about the quarterbacks here in a second, but one receiver that I want to pivot to that isn't a free agent, but Steven 116th was curious about was Deebo Samuel, who we touched on last year, obviously, we talked a lot about Brandon Ayuk, obviously, and there's a point where we thought that might get across the finish line, but even like leading up to the draft, there was talk about both 49ers receivers, and kind of through the summer, there was still talk about potentially Deebo Samuel if they were going to re-sign Brandon Ayuk. And I would say that honestly, now it seems like it's more realistic that San Fran moves on. I felt like last year they kind of had to do like the last dance thing with that group of players and obviously failed miserably because of all the injuries that they endured. But I would say it's more likely for them to move on from Deebo Samuel this year. But I also don't think that there's going to be as strong of a market based off the year that Deebo had and just how he looked physically, not even just the production being down. I just don't think he looks like the same player to me. What's your take on Deebo and a potential fit?
Well, I'll say this. When you talk about scheme fit, I mean, 100 out of 100. Deebo would be a great fit for an Arthur Smith offense. I don't think he had a very good year. And I think, he's 29. So, like, he's not that old. He's not old enough that you should be thinking, like, oh, this guy's washed up, right? It's not like DeAndre Hopkins, where you're looking at, like, a down year, like, probably done, right? Like, I don't know. I don't think I have a good reason for why things didn't go well for him this year. I think that should be a little scary. The nice thing about Deebo Samuel is it doesn't cost the acquiring team anything at all to get him. Like, it just does not. So all of the dead cap hit stays with San Francisco. The Steelers would owe him a couple of $1 million. So I think the salary makes it a very attractive. Like, it is not.
Yeah.
I don't know what the trade ask would be, but the salary for the player is not a big ask. And now the other question there is, does he want a deal? Is he, trying or like, if I'm Deebo Samuel and I had the year I had, I don't want to sign a new contract this offseason. I want to go back into another year and prove that I'm better than the player I was, statistically this season. So, I mean, that could be a really ideal situation for the Steelers. I think this is something they should push really hard to make happen. I don't know what will happen, but I think they should be really trying to make this happen.
As a bigger guy myself, I feel like I can say this. He looked like he was playing heavy this year. I don't even know. I don't know if that was by intention or what, but he's always been like a thickly built guy,
drops,
but
like, very uncharacteristically, like, I don't know if it was something got in his head or what. Like, it was definitely not the guy that we're used to seeing.
And this wouldn't be good either. I'm not making an excuse by this and saying that, I would absolve him if this were the case. I wonder, like, if there was just a level of disinterest down the stretch, like when he saw everything that was happening. Clearly, the team wasn't going anywhere. Everybody else was getting hurt. Like, I wonder if that played into it as well. Like, he had vacation on his mind from like October on.
Well, and I think there's some with or without you stuff there too, right? Missing Brandon Ayuk for a lot of that stretch. I mean, that put Deebo into a little bit of a different role in that offense, and I'm not necessarily sure that he thrived in. But if you're talking about somebody to come in, especially if the Steelers are keeping George Pickens, I think that's a real, like, seems like a high character guy, a veteran who's been there and done that. Like, I think that sounds like a good idea.
And this is a great way for motivation, Alan. We got one contract here, guys. Which one of you wants it? Go have a great year.
Yeah.
No, but it's gonna be interesting to see how they attack the wide receiver position as the quarterback position as well. We got some questions about Justin Fields. If they do re-sign Fields, Alan, do you think that will, in hindsight, have made the decision to not just move forward with him in 2024 look really bad?
No, I don't. This is one of these things where, like, the logic gets kind of twisted, but stay with me here. Okay. The Steelers had two quarterbacks in 2024. When they entered, Russell Wilson had clearly been the better of the two previously. Before 2023, in fact, every year that Justin Fields had been in the league, Russell Wilson had been a better player. So you should have come into the year thinking that Russell Wilson was going to be better. And I think, on the whole, Russell Wilson turned out to be better. When you look at their numbers and the way they played, Russell Wilson was the more effective quarterback for the Steelers this season. But I think this season showed that a Russell Wilson level of quarterback play is not sufficient for the Pittsburgh Steelers team that is currently assembled to achieve its goals. Like, you can't just do the same thing over again. You are going to try to improve the team. Obviously, this offseason, you got, you got basically 2 first-round picks because Fatanu will be back. You got a whole bunch of cap space that we talked about. You can try to upgrade other areas. But I think when you're looking at the situation, like, I don't see how they think they can get to even could they get to a playoff win with Russell Wilson? Yeah, they didn't come that far from it this year. Are they getting past that with Russell Wilson? No. The answer is no already in January. So I don't know how you sign up for that. Now, there was a chance that this defense could have been really elite this year. And maybe if this had been a historic defense, not only the best defense in the league this year, but I'm talking about a top 10 or 15 defense of all time. If they'd been that good, maybe Russell Wilson could have got him there. But I think this year made clear that the defense is not that good. And with most of the defensive stars on the wrong side of the aging curve, there's no reason to think the defense is going to be that good next year. So you have to take a shot getting better quarterback play in 2025. And even though Justin Fields was not as good every single season of his career, including this year, the aging curves are what they are. At some point, Justin Fields will be better than Russell Wilson. It might be this year. And I think he's the only one of the two that gives you any chance of playing good enough quarterback to get you to where you want to be in 2025.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, that's honestly, like I was telling you when you brought this up to me, that Tyler and I just had this conversation yesterday on my other podcast around the 412. And like, I don't like viewing it that way, right? Because I think that even though Russell Wilson could have been the short-term solution, that wouldn't have prevented Justin from being the longer-term solution if they went to it. So I don't think like you can look at things in hindsight and say, okay, the idea now of benching Justin looks worse because they decided to move forward with him. They still feel like they got a decent enough look at him in those 6 games, I guess, if they decide to move forward with him.
If the they one had question, not played Justin at all this year, I think that would have been a questionable decision. But we saw it. We saw 6 games of it. We know it wasn't very good.
Well, and here's my thing with that is the one thing that I'll say that to me would have been what they lost from not doing so this year was just letting him operate the offense entirely and failing if you do, because then I would have felt like, okay, we got our answer. We don't need to see more of this in 2025 to know what he is. I think the way that they handled him still left some question. And that's why they're still like, it's weird because we're talking about a guy that was drafted in 2021 and, you know, we feel like we have a pretty good idea of what he is as a player, but there's still some unknown there. And it's like just enough to keep you hanging on. And he has this shine to him still. And I think it's because we didn't fully get that answer because of the way that they handled him. So if they would have handled him differently, that is, I think, the one thing that they missed out on in 2024 with Justin Fields.
I'm not sure there's a lot of people in the league that have that shine on him. I think that is mostly
that's fair. Yeah. But I'm saying from the outside looking in, as a fan
PFF said today that they listed the Jets as a potential team to sign Justin Fields, which is something I hadn't really considered, that there's another team out there that would be willing to make him their starting quarterback. But the gist of the article was that hey, if they cut Aaron Rodgers, they're going to owe him a crap ton of dead cap money. So they just need to find some starter on the cheap. Not exactly this
ring endorsement. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think maybe there is a chance that another team would want Justin Fields, but I think more than likely, the Steelers are probably going to be the only team offering him this gig. And certainly with some degree of certainty, that he's going to have it if he signs the deal. And I think that alone should tell you that. I don't think a lot of people think this is likely to work.
Yeah, I guess I haven't really let that enter my mind that there could be a bidding war or situation or do you think that there's, I mean, maybe that team's the Steelers, or I don't know what you expect him to come back on, but do you think that it'd be a multi-year thing or just a 1 year, regardless of if it's in Pittsburgh?
You probably got to give him multiple years. Yeah.
Okay.
Because even if the idea is you're drafting a quarterback in 2026, if it doesn't go well, you're not going to want to go into 2026 with just a rookie quarterback.
Yeah. I like
and
the
so
idea.
I think, I think a 2-year deal makes a lot of sense.
From a financial perspective, what is your expectation with that? Because do they structure it where it's a pretty there's not a quarterback in the NFL right now making between Geno Smith $25 million and Gardner Minshew's $12.5 million. There's not a quarterback between there at all right now. Do you think he could slot in there with escalators that could make it? I'm not calling it the Jordan Love situation, but somewhat similar where it's an average quarterback salary if he hits all these escalators and performs well, or what's your expectation there?
Yeah, something like 235, that, 240, maybe even. That's about where I'd be.
So you think that he'll be the one quarterback slotted between those two. So I was looking at quarterback salaries yesterday and I was like, man, there's nobody in between Geno and Gardner Minshew. And that's a $12.5 million difference right now.
It's double. It's literally double. But yeah, I think I would put him in there somewhere. Yeah.
And then the last thing, just because somebody mentioned this as well, just like comparing the two QBs, not just from a play perspective, but we think that they would get on the open market. Do you think Russ is also within that range, or do you think just because of like the pedigree and what he had been as a player, you're looking more like 25 to 30 or?
I don't have any idea, very similarly to the TJ conversation, what Russ wants. Like if it's 1 year, yeah, probably like 20 to 30. If it's multi-year, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like that 250 at like kind of the most, I would say. Like
And if it's multi-year,
probably,
do you feel like that second year's, we talk about monopoly money, where it's like the first year's guaranteed, the
I
second
see
year
it's
doesn't
all
matter?
like it's just you can make it look however you want it to look. Do you care about the total or do you not care? And you only care about the guarantee. If I was Russ, I would not care what the total is. I would just want I would want 100% guarantee. Don't give me any money that's not guaranteed. I don't care about it.
Right.
Because it doesn't mean anything at 37. So yeah, I mean, you could give him like 1 year, 20 million. The second year is 30 million with 5 million guaranteed. Well, sorry, that's a 1 year, $25 million contract. Like you call it what you want, but that's functionally what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, good stuff. Alan, you know the drill. Before we got here, tell people where they can find you.
Saunders _PGH on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now sites account, SteelersNow.com. Go there, read the word so I can get paid. Sign up for Steelers Now Plus using promo code Allen10, get 10% off an annual subscription, and you get ad-free viewing experience plus all the best stuff from me, DB, and the whole rest of the Steelers Now team. Also, keep those questions coming here on the YouTube channel. We've had a lot of really good ones over the last couple of days. I love the questions from the audience. I like the interaction part of it. And honestly, I love it when you guys get me to think about something that I probably would not have thought of on my own. Today's Morning Rush about T. Higgins and the franchise tag, I think was a perfect example of that. And keep pushing those subscriptions here on the YouTube channel, man. We are getting close. I'm predicting that I'm leaving. I'm leaving for a 2-week trip to the Senior Bowl, the Super Bowl, the Pro Bowl on Sunday. This is going to happen while I'm on the road. It's going to happen.
There we go.
That we're going to get to 15,000. And I'm going to have to celebrate from like Marriott and somewhere, wherever I'm staying. I don't know. But
there we go. Yeah, 118 away right now. So keep that drive coming. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Like Alan said about the comp, I mean, especially this time of year, we need those questions. So hit us with questions, hit us with topics that you want us to talk about. Leave us a 5-star review and subscribe if you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from. Search Steelers Afternoon Drive. You'll find us there. And you can leave a question in the reviews as well. I'm going to be checking those a lot more often. I'm checking them daily now just to see if we have any more over there, because we want to make sure that the audio listeners are as included in this as the YouTube viewers. So be sure to do that. I guess, hit us up on TikTok too. Eventually I'll get that app back and be able to start posting content on there again for the account, but Steelers Afternoon Drive over there as well. And then you'll find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.